Hey, welcome to our podcast today. Ask Aaron and Ask Eric. This is Coach EJ, the brand.
This Coach Aaron the Source. EJ, got a topic today. Could be a little controversial depending on your take, but it's just something that, with the combines going on right now, and, both of us being in the business and seeing all of these kind of testing and metric heavy sorts of things that people are relying on. And I just got to ask myself, what's the real relevancy of testing? And maybe is it time for something new when we're talking about assessing athletes, especially from a performance standpoint? I think,
Mhm.
there's athletic ability and there's performance, and the two are I see them as separate, and so I kind of want to explore that a little bit, and find out where should people really be putting their focus, because I get calls from parents who say, hey, are you going to 40-yard dash test my kid? Are you going to vertical jump test my kid? And I get where they're coming from. These are,
Right.
things that they see that are touted by training centers and on TV, like the combines. And
Right.
also from the standpoint of they want to see what kind of value they're getting for their money. But I have a little bit of pushback on that because those tests aren't always relevant, and there's not a straight line through to performance. Now, why would I test your volleyball player in the 40-yard dash?
Right.
Even if we say we choose something that's somewhat related to it, a vertical jump, okay, we test your vertical jump. But most jumping in volleyball is off of one foot or the other. They're usually unbalanced. They're not full loaded like you would on a tested vertical jump where you have to
Right.
squat down. And there's no penultimate step in a vertical test. In other words, there's no pre-step
Right.
into the jump. So, my logic is that I can test your kid in a vertical jump, but we would have to work on getting him better at vertical jumping. Now, do we want to spend
Right.
the hour that I have your kid? Do we want to spend 15 minutes on that, 20 minutes on that, 30 minutes on that, when there's not necessarily quite a through line from the vertical jump and performance?
Hmm. Yeah.
So you got to ask, as a trainer, I have to ask myself, well, what can I do? I need to get this kid better at vertical jumping in terms of blocking. So again, penultimate step, jumping off one foot or another, and landing, those sorts of things, versus just putting him on a testing mat, having him squat and then jump up and reach as high as he can.
Right.
Because that's not what's happening in the game. And if you're coming to a performance trainer like me, i.e., performance, that's what we're looking
Right.
for. We're looking for game scenario results, not
Right.
testing scenario results.
Yeah.
So, that's just kind of where these 30 plus years as a trainer, these 50 plus years as an athlete that I'm at right now.
I'm right with you alongside you. I don't believe in all this stuff. I think it's mumbo jumbo. I hate to say it that way, and you may agree or disagree with me. I don't really care. But look, I played professional sports. I saw one of the greatest shortstops of all the time not have the strongest arm named Ozzie Smith. He had the most gold gloves and was the most athletic performance guy I ever seen play the position. And he didn't throw the ball 90 miles per hour across the diamond,
Yeah.
but he got to balls because he was such a great gymnast, which no one knew about, a great gymnast,
Hmm.
cross training, and it allowed him to be acrobatic at shortstop. I saw arguably one of the greatest hitters of getting hits, Tony Gwynn,
Yeah.
whose body did not look like he was hitting an exit velocity speed of 95 all the time. But I tell you one thing, how we tried to defense him. We're sitting in a team meeting with Dusty Baker and Dick Pole, and they're how are we going to pitch Tony Gwynn? This is like the fourth series of the year. Oh, we tried outside, we tried inside, we tried high, we started low. Why don't we just throw it down the middle of the plate and make him decide where he wants to hit the ball? Throw it down the middle and make him make a decision.
Right.
It got to that point. So, is that really all about testing? No, it's about how these guys spent time being performance based athletes that had athleticism. They took it to the game. People are forgetting that athletes need to take this testing that they say is really important. Oh, he runs a great 60. He runs a great 30. He does all this stuff. But what if he can't run the bases correctly? Or he doesn't know how to make the proper turn to get the second? Isn't that the most important thing? How fast can you get the second base and how fast you can get home?
Right.
Because I know runs count in the game, not straight ahead speed. Oh, he's really fast. Well, that's great. I'm glad he's really fast. But does that transform or transcend into the game? Not usually, not with a lot of guys that are super fast. I've seen some of the greatest times, some of the highest exit velocity speeds, and guys could not make contact. And
Yeah.
he couldn't get on base.
Yeah. I like to use the term usable athleticism. Um,
I love it.
how much of that athleticism is usable? How much are they using and transferring into the actual sport performance?
Right.
And again, that's why we're talking part of the title of this podcast, is it time for something new? Maybe the
Mhm.
testing is too antiquated and we need to develop new tests, or maybe we just develop our own tests. Sometimes that's what I'll do. I'll just make
Right.
up my own test that's more relevant to the athletic movements that the sport demands of an athlete. So instead of running a 60, well, why don't you just put the timing and the lasers from home to second and have them run the path?
Right.
Now you get a true time, and two, you actually get to see how they navigate that run. Does
Right.
this guy, turn out too wide? Is he turning in too soon? Is he decelerating in the first to try and accelerate out of the bag? Now you know exactly what this athlete can do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, so I'm not anti-testing. I'm just saying maybe we need to take a new look at how we're doing this testing. Again, I come from a track and field background. So testing is is a part of it. I mean, almost every
Right.
practice is testing because we're timing and we're measuring, right?
Right. Right.
But there's a straight line from one activity to the other. Sprinting
Right.
is sprinting, running is running, jumping is jumping, you know,
Absolutely. I
throwing is
know that.
throwing. So when we test,
Hmm.
we're testing with the actual activity for the most part, or we can, that that the sport demands of you. In
Hmm.
other sports, not so much. I mean, even look um, at some of the people in the history of the NFL. Again, combine's out now. I
Right.
read an article just about last week. They were talking about maybe the top 10 40-yard dash times in
Okay.
history, and they were going by, name by name, what kind of football career they had. And, it's a mishmash. But I would say out of that list, only about 40% had extensive NFL careers. So that
Mm.
that was no indicator of them being a Hall of Famer, or a
Right.
Pro Bowler, you know.
Hmm.
That, and again, we talked about Jerry Rice, our conversation.
Yeah.
He never had a fast 40 time, but one of the most prolific receivers in the NFL. Tom Brady, I think, had the worst 40-yard dash of any.
Right.
They talk about it still to this day.
They do.
Well, I'd trade that slow ass 40-yard dash time for whatever 7 or 8 or 9 Super Bowl rings
Absolutely. I think
any
everybody
day of
would,
the
right?
week.
Yeah.
So we just got to be careful on how much stock we put into these things. when people ask me, do you conduct tests? My answer is generally is we don't conduct traditional tests. If your kid is going to be tested, then yes, we can work on that test because they're going to be tested, at a combine or at a showcase or
Right.
whatever. That's fine. But other than that, I try and design a program with a progressive format built in so that throughout the training process, the routine gets routinely more and more challenging
Right.
as they complete phases. So now you see them developing through the training and getting better because before maybe they were getting to this point in so many seconds and in this point, or they were lifting so much in, or whatever the movement or how criteria we're using. So as each phase is completed, the athletes attained a certain amount of athletic prowess and as well as performance skill. So this way we know everything is moving towards applicable athletic and performance skills that should translate into better play.
Right.
Now, there's
Right.
obviously other things that come into play, like, environment, opportunity, psychological. But from that standpoint, we can feel pretty confident that, hey, okay, this athlete's doing pretty good. And the other thing, parents, watch your kid. Hey, he never beat out a ball from home the first before.
Right.
It must be working. Hey, he's taking us, I had one kid said, I've stolen 6 bags. They give me the green light. I said, well, how many bags did you steal last year? 1. You know? So
Right.
there's a lot of different ways to kind of find out, hey, are we on the right course? Is the training working? And validate what you're doing versus, okay, we test you the first day you come in. Well, basically you know nothing that day anyway. So you're starting from zero. And then we're going to these next 8 training sessions, basically study the test and cram for the test. And now we're going to take the test 8 weeks later. Well, there should
You're
be
gonna get better. Right. You're going to prepare for the test. Yeah, I like what you said there. And I just think that we get so involved in, I see it online. Well, God, he throws 90 from the infield.
Mhm.
Well, okay, he wound up, ran 20 steps and threw it. Like, when do you ever do that in the game, right? And
Yeah,
so I thought,
exactly.
I mean, when do you do that? And oh, he throws 90 though. Okay. But what about this? And I love this that Major League Baseball does this in the games. Like they can test your throws on real plays and
Yeah.
see how hard you're really throwing. So I look at O'Neal Cruz, the now center fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He played shortstop previous 3 seasons, and they were timing they were testing his velocity speed from shortstop, and he was like on the average the highest out of anybody in baseball. But they had it where it was like in the game and he was getting outs. They
Hmm.
weren't testing it when he was like the guy's safe,
Yeah.
but when he was getting outs and what he was throwing and what he was averaging. And I thought that's a relevant stat. That's
Right.
like a relevant thing that's related to the game to get outs, and it's performance based on the game. Those stats are great. I love those stats because that's game related, performance related to help the team win or lose. I just think that's this. Let's run
EJ,
5 steps
you
and
froze
test
again.
velocity. I think
You
it's
froze again.
ridiculous.
Give me rewind 10 seconds. Rewind 10 seconds.
I'll rewind that. Exactly. So, I was talking about O'Neal Cruz and how relevant it was when he threw the ball across the diamond and how important that was during game situations. So, I don't like it when I see it in combines or wherever you want to call testing baseball, where the infielder runs 15 steps and throws it as hard as they can and go, he's got a plus arm. Well, I do too if I ran 20 steps. Is it game related?
Right.
Does it work in the game? Do they get a person out?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. And I don't see this or exit velocity speed where they're tossing the ball to him slow and he's killing it
Yeah. Yeah.
off the tee. The ball's moving in the game.
Yeah.
Can we get stats like that? But I'll be honest with you. Um, Probably at the youth level, probably. And when I say youth, I say 18 things at the ballpark. And even in college, they don't have all this stuff set up. Okay. So it's hard to kind of figure that out unless you are at a facility, at a ballpark that has all this information and you track players game by game and play by play. You don't really know. You're guessing all the time. That's why I think it's time to reevaluate our testing because we're guessing so much on these guys.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's kind of my 2 cents on that. I just think that testing is archaic right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think there needs to be a new take on it
Yes.
and some new standards set, new tests that might be a little bit more relevant to gameplay. And
Mm,
we got increasing technology to be able to do
right.
that. I mean, baseball demonstrates that, you know,
It is a
all the time. Football is starting to demonstrate that, where you see graphics on, TV and stuff. Again, why are you doing a
right.
40 when the average play is less than 10 yards? Why
Right?
aren't you testing kids, these athletes from 0 to 10 or something like that? Because
Hmm.
most football is about acceleration. Well, no one's accelerating at 40 yards, especially untrained, professional athletes still aren't. So other than
Right.
track and field athletes, most everyone else is not accelerating after, 20 yards. So
A
soccer, you
hundred
know what I'm
percent.
saying? All these things.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Maybe taking a different look at how do we um, evaluate these athletes
Um,
and come up with better tests.
yeah. I,
Um,
I think so. I think so because the testing's very stale and it's very like you have to do it this way, but you don't really perform that way in your sport.
yeah,
It goes back to, train an athlete for a jump or something like that, but you don't really jump that way, or you don't really run that way, or you don't really hit that way. You don't sit there and the ball's standing there and you swing at it. The ball's moving, So I just think it's about time that we do evaluate our testing process, Aaron, and really look at it closely to get a more accurate reading on all athletes.
well, yeah. I mean, football, like I said, is starting to do this more and more with some of their combine events. They're kind of opening up so that they can see the athleticism as it relates to football versus just, some arbitrary, um, well, singular skill, you
Right.
know. So anyway, my 2 cents. The relevancy of testing, is it time for something new? I think so.
Yeah, my take on it, Aaron, it's time for something new. I'm gonna jump out there and say it's time for something new to kind of figure this out. It's hard to scout athletes and figure out what they do, but if we can start putting them in positions where it's going to be close to their sport and what they do, why not go for it?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, we
But
need the clearest illustration of talent that we can if we're going to evaluate athletes. So,
agree on that.
anyway, that's all I got.
Yep. And thanks for joining us today on Ask Aaron and Ask EJ. Hey, this is Coach EJ, the brand.
This is Coach Aaron, the source. We'll see you.